Hello, it's Nick. Welcome to my channel if you are new, and if you've been here before, welcome back. I'm happy to see you again. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving the reasons why I am not in support of Candace Owens, a conservative activist, online influencer, if you will, her lawsuit to sue the fact checkers online, in particular, the fact checkers employed by Facebook. So that is what we're doing in this video. But before I get into the video, I have a few things I want to say just as prefaces to the extent of the video in which I will be debunking, giving my thoughts on some of the things she talked about in her announcement video promoting the crowdfunding effort to fund this lawsuit, because she, as I will go into later, it's very expensive. So first thing I want to say is I actually think, even though the rest of this video might not seem like it, I actually do think Candace Owens is good for the conservative movement overall. And I agree, she has brought a lot of people that wouldn't otherwise be involved politically into the political process, and I think that's awesome on any side of the aisle. And I do think she is influential and responsible for awakening a lot of people to what is really going on in politics in the world. And there's no mistaking her level of influence in politics, socially, politically, or culturally, in any of those spaces. I think she has had a very strong influence on all those assets of our culture and society. So I want to make that very clear. And with that said, I do see blind spots. In my opinion, and as I will outline in this video, her latest move to sue the fact checkers online, to me, puts that blind spot out in the open and exposes it pretty clear, almost as clear as it's ever been, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to make something else very clear before I get into the video, and that is I'm probably not going to make any side of the argument or the conversation around Candace Owens, whether you agree with her, disagree with her, or maybe you're somewhere in the middle. I'm probably not going to make everyone happy in this video, and whether it's I'm going against her and giving some advice and things I think she's doing wrong by exposing a blind spot, or talking about her at all by saying I agree with her in any way. I think every side of the conversation surrounding Candace will have a problem with something I say here, which I go into this knowing that. But with that said, in this video I will be sharing my thoughts on her video promoting the lawsuit against the fact checkers, and some other thoughts on Candace Owens, not necessarily related to the lawsuit, later on in the video after I go through kind of point by point her video that was announcing her lawsuit. So before we get into that, really quick announcement, really quick reminder: if you like culture or social, political, and cultural commentary throughout every week, make sure to subscribe to this channel, whether you are watching on Rumble or you are watching on YouTube. And if you want notifications sent to your phone, push notifications, make sure to ring the bell here on YouTube to make that happen. So with that said, let's get into the video. Oh, and one more thing. If you like anything you hear at any point, give this video a thumbs up. And if you have any thoughts throughout the video, make sure to leave them in the comments, because I love interacting with you all. And I know this video will probably bring some interesting perspectives that might contradict what I say or be opposite of what I say, but I welcome all opinions and all sides to this argument in the comment section. So let's get into the video. Start with the first point. So the first thing that she did in her apology video on YouTube was actually apologize to her YouTube audience for not posting more on the platform, this platform that you might be watching on. And I'm going to actually table my rebuttal to that whole idea of her apologizing for later in the video, but that was the first thing she led with in the video, so I want to make sure I know that I'm going in order, but table that for the end, or towards the end, and you'll understand why. But her main point in this video, and what she really leads with, is that, I'm paraphrasing here, but she basically says, if the President of the United States is not free to tweet, then none of us are free. To an extent, that's what she's saying. While yes, I agree, censoring the president is quite alarming for any platform, for any reason. If it is in the terms of service of whatever platform he's on, or any of us are on, that he or anyone using that platform can be censored, and we agree to those terms of service, whether they're vague, specific, or not, and censoring someone falls into what the terms of service says they can do, then we should not be surprised that this is happening. One, and they've pretty much given us warnings throughout the past basically 4 years, but especially the last year as we get closer to election season or the actual election day, and especially in regards to COVID-19, which I will talk about later and she brings up, we shouldn't be surprised. I like the saying, when someone tells you who they are, shows you who they are, believe them, right? So there's that. And after all, I think we are after equality of we actually are after equal treatment under terms of service. So if it says they can do that, that's really the problem, I think, is that they're not maybe applying their rules equally, and that could be, I think, maybe the source of anything that could go against these companies. But also, at the end of the day, Twitter is a private company. They are not a utility, as some people are arguing that social media companies should become utilities. And that could be a whole nother video in my opinion, but a lot of the points I'm going to outline going forward in this video will probably support that idea. But if you want like a separate video on why I think they're not utilities, let me know. But they are not utilities in my opinion, or they aren't, and I don't think they should be. And there are viable alternatives for everyone anyone with a phone or internet connection. That is the reality of where we are right now in 2020, is there are tons of options for alternatives to the big social media platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever other ones I can't think of at the moment. But anyways, that's the one problem that's working against her on this one. So then she goes into this rant on socialism in America, being how she thinks it's crazy that we are being told, and she never thought she would be growing up in a country, or that America would turn into a country where we would be told when to go to school, when we can open our businesses, when we should be masking our children. And she appears to be using this as a compliment to her disdain for censorship, with things really outside of the censorship on the internet issue that appears to be the subject of the lawsuit she is filing. Now, I am not a legal expert. Let's make that very clear. But I see this, if my understanding of some legal opinions from none other than the brand new Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett, her recent opinions on the lockdown orders, I think it was in the state of Illinois. If I'm correct on my understanding of some of those opinions, this lawsuit that Candace is filing related to social media censorship, the one thing that may work against her is the ideas I've already outlined, but I will support them later on, is the idea that these are private companies. It might be in their terms of service. If they can prove it's in their terms of service that this is okay, and maybe the one thing might be working against them is that they might be unequally applying their terms of service, but I'm not exactly sure if that unequal treatment, if it's in their terms of service, is something that can be enforced by law if they're a private company. That's one of the things I'm kind of not really sure about. So if you have any opinions on that, or you have a resource that might answer that for me, let me know in the comments. But then Candace goes on to add that the election mess is in support of the whole election mess, basically, that we're still in, is supportive of her argument against big tech censorship. Now, we can all agree that censorship from big tech is very influential on public opinion, leading to influence in the election. I don't think anyone is really disputing that, or besides maybe the CEOs of these companies that have finally kind of admitted that what they're doing is influential. However, like I said before, they are private entities, so you can't say you want or you don't want to be the victim of censorship, or that you are the victim of censorship by a private business, i.e. big tech, but then believe that forcing a private company to adopt your views is how this problem should be solved. I think these are two conflicting arguments, and maybe there is a nuance that I'm missing, but to me, if you don't want your opinion silenced, then why should you force your opinions on someone else, if that makes sense? But maybe I'm missing a point there. But anyways, that was kind of my big thought on her bringing in the election into this. And I was trying to think of actually a few different examples, but I mean, I don't know if the ones I was thinking of were really helpful, so I just kind of left them out. But if you have any examples of why it's different, why being a victim of big tech censorship and enforcing a private company to accept your views, how is that different than you imposing your views on someone else? Maybe that helps. I don't know. Let's move on. I digress. So here's the part that is the glaringly obvious and maybe the biggest criticism I have of Candace, that may be the blind spot that she might not see until maybe it's too late or she has to learn a very hard lesson, which could be, in this case, the loss of a lawsuit and being frustrated by that. So she leads into the idea of the weaponization of fear in the name of safety, referring to the response to the pandemic. Now, she states that the response to the pandemic is really a grab for power and control and to increase people's reliance on government, and I actually agree with her on that point. However, she then makes a factual statement about the freedom of having your own money and being able to decide how you spend that for yourself. Now, I'll add into her argument about having your own money and being able to spend it, I'll add time into that, because in my opinion, time is money, time is a currency because you can't get it back, and once you spend your time on something, it is what it is. Well, in reference to big tech, it's spending your time watching an ad gains them money because those advertisers are paying for their ads to be watched. So anyways, but in this case, if the big tech companies make money, meaning money is power and control, from your time watching ads or similar things that make them money, and you choose an alternative not censoring you, or you can choose, at least there is one available, why are you not switching to that alternative? That is a question I would ask her if she was sitting right in front of me or watching. She also states that reliance on money from the government is a form of slavery. Well, and along those same lines, in my opinion, reliance on a certain social media platform for money is also a form of slavery along that same line of thinking that she states that reliance on money from the government is a form of slavery. And especially when there are viable options at your disposal regarding social media. So here's another point that along the same lines of the government assistance is slavery route. Candace mentions that people waiting for Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, can bring bills to the floor of the House of Representatives to pass more stimulus is unnecessary, and that the government should just let businesses stay open, reopen, not close, however you want to frame that. So it's interesting that earlier in the video, she said she is horrified by the idea that we are being told when we can open our business, but is advocating for government to let us open our businesses. So in my opinion, Candace would have been more effective if she advocated for businesses to stay open regardless of what the government officials say. In my opinion, we don't end slavery by talking about running away from our slave owners or hoping our slave owners change their mind. We end slavery by running away from our slave owners, escaping, and aligning ourselves with those who want us to be free-thinking, independent beings. Now, I want to be clear. I think Candace may have made a big mistake by making this video and making it a seemingly off-the-cuff, impassioned, emotional video, but honestly, I understand her intent was to raise awareness for her lawsuit because of the reasons I've been outlining here, which are shining a light on the blind spots of hers that I see. Now we get into the part of the video where she gives more specific details on, according to Candace, why she ended up filing this lawsuit. And she said her experience over the course of this 2020 during the pandemic response of her being censored for sharing an opinion of a doctor regarding COVID-19, the censorship by a Facebook fact checker who was a longtime CNN employee who started a fact checking firm in 2016. And this is what triggered her lawsuit because she felt no one was doing anything about the censorship or that these fact checkers were censoring people based on opinions that those fact checkers deemed not true because they could find another opinion that contradicted that opinion. She also stated she felt these fact checkers are acting as a Supreme Court of a banana republic because of their disregard for the Constitution of the United States regarding a company that operates in the United States, a private company, Facebook. Well, I know I sound like a broken record here, I'm going to be very clear, but her problems, in my opinion, would go away if she left these platforms, which I will address actually at the end, more towards the end of the video, with a more general analysis or topics of Candace Owens regarding the law, but we'll leave that towards the end. But I think she may feel that no one is doing anything about this because of a few reasons. And it could be one of these reasons or it could be a combination of these reasons. But reason number one, she's not, and well, I think we can all be pretty certain of this, that she is not all-knowing and she doesn't know what everyone posts or every opinion that's out there. So that's one. Two, she maybe hasn't realized that many of the people who feel the same way as her have just chose to leave these platforms or have been kicked off because they've been censored or banned, leading them to just find another platform that won't treat them this way. For example, leaving the plantation of freedom, or as a kind of a metaphor, leaving the plantation for freedom. And yes, that was an intended pun regarding the name of her recent book, but I'll leave it at that. But those are kind of the two reasons I was thinking of. But now we get into her video, the part where she talks about the lawyers she hired for this lawsuit against the fact checkers, to which she quickly dismissingly says that she knew she couldn't afford these lawyers, but it was okay, and that was kind of something she dismissed because she knew she'd be able to crowdsource the money. So a few things I have this, a few thoughts. One, if your audience is that loyal to you and they're willing to support you in your eyes no matter what, why not just move your audience to a platform treating you the way you like to be treated? And two, and this may need some more knowledge to confirm this second point, but to my knowledge, you can hire the most expensive, reputable lawyer in the world, but if you don't have a winnable case, what does that do for you? Last time I checked, we still have a justice system, even though we all have our opinions on if it's working or not, that you can't pay to have favor you, at least openly. And I know this is kind of a widely debated, but we can agree that justice doesn't necessarily mean you agree with the verdict. So we'll leave that out there. But three, she's about to give birth, and she is entering this lawsuit openly saying she can't really afford to lose. Now, I don't judge people on how they spend their money or their lifestyle choices, but that seems very risky to me. And maybe she feels that this is like the thing that her whole life has been leading up to as far as this lawsuit, but in my opinion, it indicates that she may feel that she's at a place where her influence and following is so solid that she is willing to put her entire livelihood at risk for this. And I commend her for being able to take that big of a risk, but for me, looking from the outside, it seems very, I don't know, maybe a little too emotionally driven, maybe too impulsive. I don't know. But I really just hope this doesn't end in a disaster for her, because like I said at the beginning of this video, I do think she's important to the movement regarding conservatism and exposing corruption and truth and whatnot. So, and then my fourth point on this is it is interesting to me that the platforms that have allowed her to gain a following to build this career are now the ones she is suing and using that following to fund the lawsuit against them. Just interesting. Anyways. So, another interesting thing that caught my attention in this video and kind of triggered a memory for me from one of Candace's podcasts earlier this year that she does with PragerU was her mentioning in this video, the one I got about her lawsuit, that she was saying she is going after any of these fact checkers censoring opinions online. And she mentions that the reason she's doing it is because she's standing up for everyone who at some point will have someone on the ballot who they care about, who may be censored. Now, this brought me back to Candace condemning tactics on her podcast used by activist Laura Loomer, who's very controversial, saying that Candace said that she doesn't agree with Laura's extreme way, and this is paraphrased, of drawing attention to important issues for a number of reasons, but I can't recall Candace voicing her support for Laura, as Laura was actually on the ballot in 2020 in President Trump's home district in Florida. So to me, if you have this platform and you believe in free speech for everyone, wouldn't risking your removal from a platform for voicing support for Laura or people like her be the ultimate middle finger to these tech platforms? Along the same lines of just like keeping your business open no matter what the rules are, civilly defying absurd rules, etc. Wouldn't that be the way to take back your power without bending the knee? Because these companies only have power if you give it to them. Like I said earlier, your time and money is what gives these people power besides you bending the knee to them. So, Candace goes on to say she fights for all speech, even leftists she can't stand, because she wants to be able to fight their wrongs with her rights, or their wrong ideas with her right ideas. And honestly, I agree. The answer to bad speech and hate speech is more speech, more open discussion, being able to debunk the whole idea around misinformation. The way to counter misinformation is to flood the channels with the correct information and have the ability to fact check yourself and be able to do it openly and let people decide who made the best argument, really. But then she goes into bashing Congress people about the hearings they have with big tech CEOs, and I'll talk more on big tech CEOs and hearings later regarding that law that I kind of alluded to before, saying that those aren't doing anything and we need to hit these companies where it hurts in the pocketbook. Now, I agree we need to hurt them in the pocketbook, and I agree those hearings aren't doing anything that productive. But apparently, Candace thinks hiring expensive lawyers to fight for a change in policy of a private company in hopes of winning a large award is the way to do that. Well, a free way to do it and to hit them in the pocketbook is to leave a platform and encourage your following to do so as well, and maybe even influence other influencers who have a big platform and big following to do the same. So another hurdle to this lawsuit, and this might be the thing that kind of hurts this whole argument, is that they have what they call immunity under Section 230 in the law, which grants them certain immunity from litigation because they have the protections of a platform, not a publisher, meaning they're not considered like a news organization that reports on news that would be more liable for any wrong information or slanderous litigation, from what I understand. So that's kind of the big crux of what the problem. So this leads to my counter argument regarding the law and these hearings she dislikes as much as I do. So as long as these companies have their Section 230 privileges intact, from my understanding, these types of lawsuits will fall flat. And you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but that's my understanding at the moment. And it appears from many reports and accounts I've seen online that there is enough evidence from these big tech CEOs regarding their testimony in public at these Senate hearings in Congress in both houses, from my understanding. There is enough evidence for these big tech CEOs to be revoked, to have their Section 230 privileges revoked. In that case, I think the floodgates would open to endless litigation if they didn't change their policy to accordingly reflect that of a platform, leading to these companies at the end of the day folding, because these lawsuits would pile up so quick and be so large that they wouldn't be able to operate. But until Congress and the federal law enforcement do their job, we, the people, have to mobilize away from these platforms. After all, Candace says she hates big government. She criticizes reliance on government handouts or government welfare. So why is she waiting for government to save her in this case if there is a way out without them. So then she continues on talking about her lawsuit and goes more into the detail about, or is more promoting the website where you can go and donate, by adding a little dig at Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook CEO, and the fact checkers by calling them, quote, meek and weak. Well, I understand that was meant to tap into kind of this emotional, kind of barbaric plea to the audience in order to grab support for this lawsuit and donating in this endeavor. But as I may be taking these words out of context or maybe a little too seriously, but if these fact checkers and Mark Zuckerberg were so weak and meek, would you be suing them for essentially having the ability for them to wipe out your entire livelihood with literally one click of the computer mouse? I don't think so. So I understand why she said those two things, but it's not really helping your argument, in my opinion. So to me, it is ironic that she is asking for money to help fund this lawsuit, considering her views on government assistance, as stated in this particular video. And while government assistance and asking for donations are not exactly the same thing, you could argue that her suing to keep her place on a platform that fuels her business is like someone suing the government for no longer deeming them eligible for government assistance. And it's also ironic, and also in support of one of my previous points, that she mentions the server for the lawsuit website keeps going down because she had just shared about this lawsuit and shared the website on 3 of her platforms. I may be missing something here or not adding this up correctly, but it keeps hitting home to me and smacking me right in the face how ironic it is that she is suing the platforms she is using to fund the lawsuit against the platforms. Just ironic to me. Maybe you can fill me in. Maybe I'm wrong here, but anyways. So now that we've covered the lawsuit announcement video, let's get into some more general thoughts I had and some criticisms of Candace, which I think will be a good segue into kind of my next video that I'm working on and some future endeavors. So let's get into that. So in this video, overall, it highlights to me the bad optics of Candace Owens' social media strategy that I believe will hit her in the wallet no matter if she wins this lawsuit or not. Now that is only showing up on platforms she's abandoned when she feels like she needs to sell something, whether it's funding this lawsuit, crowdfunding, buying her book, promoting an event that she wants people to attend. And it looks like this is what happened here on YouTube with her posting this video, and it had happened and has been happening on YouTube and on Parler, and it's been apparent there for a while now. And according to the Parler CEO, which is a Twitter alternative that I enjoy using, he had verbal support, from what I understand and what he said, from Candace and many others kind of in the same realm as her, influencer wise conservative, who have been speaking out about big tech censorship in the beginning, which actually prompted kind of the first wave of new users to kickstart kind of the growth of Parler over a year ago at this point. And it appears it came from last summer, so July of 2019, I believe, the White House Social Media Summit, where a lot of conservative social media influencers were invited to the White House by President Trump's team. And that, from what I understand, is where the conversations were had with John and a lot of these influencers to move to Parler. So anyways, but it appears that Candace went back on her word for some reason, or at least hasn't fulfilled her end of the bargain, and I'm not sure why, but I think she could have saved a lot of headaches with big tech and even avoided this lawsuit if she had held up her end of the deal with alternative tech and also kept her credibility at the same time with those once supportive of her but were turned off by what I'm calling kind of this blind spot regarding one of the most important issues of our time, which is free speech. So then again, it could be just her tactic to cause conflict, which results in more publicity for her, which she thinks maybe will help her career. All publicity is good publicity, maybe in her opinion. But anyways, by the way, quick note. It's been cloudy and rainy, so the lighting has changed a little bit. But anyways. So, I wanted to I don't like making these videos without some kind of constructive criticism if the person that's the subject of this video happens to come across this, because I don't want to see anyone completely fail or completely just lose their livelihood. I don't agree with that. So I came up with a few things I think she can do to correct her path at this point, to maybe earn back some of those people who were once supportive of her. And I will say, I think she should file a lawsuit, because she's already in this deep with it, and I think it might be the thing that will teach her the best lesson. But if she happens to see this, I say file the lawsuit, and in my opinion, I think she's probably going to lose it. But along the same lines of filing a lawsuit, which apparently she's actually already done, but I'm saying if I was giving her advice, leave the platforms that you are suing, especially if at the end of the day you lose the lawsuit. And couple that with an announcement that you are running for political office to fight for the removal of the protections of these companies or reform the law. Use this as your in to promote or to announce a run for political office. Now, I'm not saying take the Laura Loomer path of running for office after you've been backed into a corner by being banned en masse from like all these different major tech platforms and even banks. Laura Loomer has been banned from Chase Bank, from what I understand. But be proactive by leaving these platforms, taking your power back, and garnering your support that you have to represent the people in an elected official position, whether that be Congress, state house, local, city, federally, whatever it may be. I think that would earn her back a lot of respect, leaving those big tech censoring platforms, moving to alternative social media, and coupling that with running for office. I think that would be showing that you're putting your money where your mouth is, and maybe even apologize for people for not doing it earlier and saying, hey, I was kind of blind to this. I wasn't aware of this thing, and I feel like I'm evolving, whatever. Some apology that's sincere and like, hey, I'm sorry. That would be one thing. But also along those same lines of coming to a platform just to sell something, which I talked about earlier, I see her using this lawsuit, and maybe she didn't intend this, but as an announcement and as a way to come back into the YouTube space in preparation for her new role on the Daily Wire, which is a conservative news publication that they have shows, where their personalities more recently have all switched to posting their shows that are on the Daily Wire on their personal channels rather than on the Daily Wire channel, which is where they just post clips now, which is smart, in my opinion, for them advertising-wise and censorship-wise to kind of distribute their content over many channels and let the viewers choose which of their favorite personalities from the Daily Wire to follow more closely, and also opening the door to growing the Daily Wire brand and offering. So very smart. But I'm just curious to see kind of what happens with that endeavor between Candace and the Daily Wire, and if Candace coming back to the platform she admittedly abandoned would garner any backlash. I'm curious to see how that plays out. So lastly, I recently saw someone defending their choice to continue living in a state that they consistently criticize for having bad public leadership, i.e. a governor. So this person defended their stay as them fighting back, staying and holding their ground. And this was something I wanted to incorporate into this video because I've heard Candace say something to the extent of California is trash, let them secede from the union, also regarding all of the left coast, as she calls it, like Oregon, Washington, California. Let them secede from the union. I don't understand why anyone would want to stay in California at this point. And a side note on that, Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire believes kind of the same idea enough to move the organization to Nashville from Los Angeles. So I was forced in this kind of being confronted by this to look at my view of the platforms online when they aren't treating you how you'd like them to be, how you'd like them to treat you, versus someone else's view on moving states when you don't like the leadership. So the best reason I can give at this point is one is a private issue, meaning a private company issue, and the other is a public issue. meaning you can vote out an elected official you don't like by campaigning for their opponent or even becoming their opponent. But it's a lot harder to vote out a CEO of a private company unless you garner support from within the company or find an influential stake in the company for voting power to change the way they operate. So to me, moving states is a lot bigger of stakes than moving platforms online with an established audience you already have, in my opinion. So this is one of those areas I'm still working through as far as any contradictions between leaving a platform versus leaving a state. And I do have plans on actually making a video on why I'm staying in California, even as I dislike the leadership here, which I may include a more in-depth analysis of in that video of the specific issue. So be on the lookout for that. I'm not sure exactly when that's coming out, but I have that planned. However, that's a future video. But in my next video, I will be covering a friend of Charlie's actually, of Candace's, who is Charlie Kirk, and they're friends. They work together. They're along the same in the same category of influencer online. And I don't want to give away too much on what I'm going to talk about regarding him, because I still am working on the details of that video and what angle I want to take. But if you liked this video, I think you will like that video. So I'm going to wrap up this video on Candace right now. But if you liked this video, one, give it a thumbs up. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Rumble, give it a rumble, whether it's above this video, the punching bag, if you're on your phone, or below this video, the plus sign if you're on your computer. And let me know what you think in the comment section. But if you really like this video and you're interested in hearing more about this, and you're interested about a similar topic regarding Charlie Kirk, who is kind of along the same lines, but a little bit different of a situation, make sure to subscribe to this channel, whether you're on Rumble or YouTube, because this is the type of angle I take, the type of thinking I am showing on this channel, covering social, political, and cultural topics throughout every week. So with that said, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and I cannot wait to talk to you in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.